All right, Mike Tannenbaum is here, my colleague, not only at ESPN, but at ESPN Radio. We're going to be doing our Sunday game day show all season. Are you locked in yet on this radio show here, Mike?
Your humility really is transformational because I thought in the intro you'd be like, Kevin Clark, comma, who kicked Mike Tannenbaum's ass in golf, is joining us today.
No, I let what's the old saying? If you're good, you have to tell people you're good. If you're great, people tell you. That's kind of where I'm at.
I wouldn't go that far, and I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to hosting you on the rematch here. But really excited, for our audience. It's sort of the red zone of
Yeah.
radio. It's a great 4 hour conversation, a lot of laughs, and hopefully a few insights along the way.
Insights coming from you and our player guests, not me. I just sort of go, wow, look at that. All right, so let's talk about the opening week of the NFL season. I want to start here because the Micah Parsons trade, it's obviously still the biggest news, still the biggest earthquake, and I'm curious. We've only seen maximum. We see one mega trade really every other year. You think about obviously Jalen Ramsey a few years ago, which was really the first kind of two first round picks for a player type of deal. Khalil Mack coming after that, a couple others in the interim. Like you were a GM, you've taken big swings. It seems like a pretty conservative league. How does a mega trade come together? What are the machinations involved there?
Well, there's a number of them, and I would agree. Like, it is a league that trends towards being conservative and sort of keeping the golf analogies, keeping the ball in the fairway,
Yeah.
not leveraging picks. I do think there's a little bit more proliferation of trades in the last couple of years, Kevin. But to me, I thought what Green Bay did was textbook in terms of, what did great companies do? They're opportunistic. You look at Howie Roseman over the last couple of years. To his credit, he knew that things were bumpy between AJ Brown and Green Bay, and he went out and made a draft day trade, which obviously was transformational. He knew that Saquon Barkley, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
was an underrated asset. So to me, you have to be a great listener, like we were when we acquired Brett Favre. And I am just shocked and floored. First of all, I would never trade Micah Parsons, 26 years old, you know, one of the best pass rushers, if not the best pass rushers in the league. That's what you try to get. You try to get point scorers, pass rushers, and obviously quarterbacks. So to me, I never, ever, ever would have traded him. With that said, if you do decide to make the trade, do it in March. Like, you just have a much bigger market, and then you create a sense of urgency by saying, "Hey, I need your highest and best offer." And given all those teams in the AFC, Kevin, in
Yeah.
particular, the Baltimores and the Buffaloes that are chasing Kansas City, like, this would have been like, who knows what they would have gotten.
No, that's my feeling on it is, and this reminds me a little bit of the Luca trade where it's like no one even knew he was on the market. You could have gotten a huge return for it, but it got negotiated in the cover of darkness between two teams. Is it a faux pas? Maybe I'm just crazy here, but if you're saying to a player, you're saying to 31 teams, "Hey, this guy's available." Like if it's a star, do GMs just not put that in the group text? Do they not say, "Hey, this guy's available," or do they only reserve that for guys who are going to be cut or lower level guys? Like, what is the dance of saying like this guy is actually on the trade block?
Yeah, so again, I think Coach Parcells taught me this like a long time ago, Kevin. Like, one of your jobs is you want to collect information when you're running a team, and let's face it, typically you're not going to deal with your division most of the time. Sometimes there's an exception. And if I'm Jerry Jones, I just fundamentally made the mistake that somebody in his staff didn't call those great teams in the AFC. Again, if you're the Chargers, I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
teams you could make, a very cogent argument to say Micah Parsons would
Yes.
have been
Yes.
helpful. And I think the only way to look at this, because Jerry Jones is a Hall of Fame businessman, is that emotion got in the way of reason,
Yeah.
and emotion got in the way of facts and strategy and data, because there's nothing that would tell you that you should get Kenny Clark, who's a B player, very
Yeah.
good player, 30 years old, bad toe, and two first round picks, which barring something unforeseen will be pretty low.
Yeah. Yeah. But pretty low. And again, you could have traded him. For me, like when you say if you text 31 teams say Micah Parsons is available, if you did that, if you wanted to do that, not only would you get better offers, you get worse teams where he not only are you going to get a better pick, but you're gonna, it sounds vindictive, but you're gonna seek a measure of revenge on the player. Like that's sometimes that's a tax you have to pay. If you're a player who wants a mega deal, you have to go to a worse team that's going to give you $47 million a year for a certain position. Micah Parsons is making out of this like a bandit because he's going to go into instant Super Bowl contention, play in big games starting Sunday. He's not going to be in anonymity. Like and again, the Packers are going to pick anywhere from 25th to potentially 32nd. And so I just don't know. I just don't understand it. But again, I'm not the first person to understand it. Cowboys fans have been in hell for a week. It's just very bizarre. All right. Before we get to the week one games and just sort of bounce around a little bit, I want to just leave this open to you. Is Howie, because you mentioned Howie earlier, is he the best general manager in football right now, or is there somebody we should be talking about more?
Yeah, look, he's in that discussion. To me, it's about organizations. He's up there. Brett Veach and Kansas City's up there. Look, to be candid, in his own division, Adam Peters, like,
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh, I mean, he's been on the job for less than 2 years. And you think about Dan Quinn and Jaden Daniels, like, I mean, that was like a million years ago that he got hired, right? And it's only been 18 months. It seems like a lot longer than that. So there's a few that I think are extremely well run. Brian Gutekunst and Green
Yeah.
Bay is right there. And I think San Francisco, look, they've dealt with a lot of injuries, but I think sustainability outside of the Trey Lance trade, I think John and Kyle have done a really good job.
Let's talk about this week. What's your first number one game this week? Like what are you circling?
Let's go right to Green Bay and Detroit. The
Yes.
aforementioned Micah Parsons. And I'll tell you what, here's what's interesting to me. If I'm Detroit, it looks like Graham Glasgow is going to play. Lots of it made of losing both coordinators, but they did lose, Kevin Zeitler in free agency and Frank Ragnow. So good that Glasgow is going to be back because I think to me, like that's the foundation of this great Detroit run is a really good offensive line. I think they're going to be fine on offense. I love Ben Johnson, work with him in Miami, but they'll be fine. I think I would be shocked if they didn't go no huddle when Micah
Mm,
Parsons is on the field, meaning
mm.
let's test his conditioning. He didn't participate in training camp. So let's look for Detroit to go no huddle, up tempo. And then on the other side of the ball, relative to, Green Bay, like if they could get B play out of like this mixture they have at corner, Keyshawn Nixon, interestingly, Bone
Yeah.
Melton's a conversion, Carrington Valentine, like if they could get enough out of those players, they'll be fine because Xavier McKinney to me is a really good safety. Their linebackers, I think are going to be outstanding actually over the course of the season. I think the middle of the defense and the pass rushers are very good. Edgerrin
Hmm.
Cooper, I think, will be very good. Rashawn Gary, obviously, Quay Walker. But the question is going to be the corners and can they
Yeah.
hold up against Detroit?
How much, in your opinion, can you get away with if you just have an awesome front seven? Like Bill Belichick was amazing at robbing Peter to pay Paul, where roster wise he'd say, you know what, I can get away with a C plus unit this year in this position group, and if I have this position group to make up for it. Like with that cornerback room, can that front seven get them to a Super Bowl?
Yeah, it's interesting because like I know a lot of people are putting Miami in this conversation, but it's a very similar conversation. Storm Duck and they just added what a couple of guys off the streets for Sewell Douglas and
Yeah.
Jackson from Arizona State.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of they have a great pass rush with Bradley Chubb, you know, and if the other guys are healthy and Chop Robinson and Jalen Phillips, that'll cover up for it.
Right.
Likewise, like if Rashawn Gary plays in 17 games and they have, now Lucas Van Ness as a third, you can
Right.
cover up subpar corner play because you're holding it for 2.5 seconds or less. So moving on from Jair Alexander was obviously, a decision that probably had to do with durability and other factors. But that would be the one question mark. But I think this pass rush can make up for that.
Yeah, I agree. And again, like the Cowboys defense is going to get so much worse. And the stat that I just couldn't believe it, and I double checked it once I saw it, was that when Micah Parsons was on the field in Dallas, they were the best defense in football. And when he was not on the field, they were the second worst defense. And by the way, he played enough games where that's a significant sample size in both ways. So like he is probably the biggest difference maker on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, almost if you look at it, Mike, it's almost like he has the for that unit, almost like he has the impact of a quarterback. Like it's almost that level when you look at that kind of stat. And so I just think instantaneously, as long as the injection, whatever he's getting, is going to be fine, he's going to be full health. I think you're going to get instant, like massive jump on defense in the Packers, and I think that's why they're going to make the Super Bowl.
And Kevin, what's interesting about that is not only the production that he creates, but it's also the production that he creates for others.
Yeah,
Because John Morton and Mark Brunell and you know all those other Detroit offensive coaches, they're sitting there saying, Hank Fraley, their offensive
yeah.
line coach, is sitting there saying, "Hey, where is he on every play? They got slide protection, meaning they got to double him on every snap." Now all of a sudden, Rashawn Gary's going to get 1-on-1. He's going to win his fair share of battles.
Uh, Real quick on Bills Ravens. You've been on teams. You've been the GM of teams, and then you've been associated with teams even before that, where January is all anybody's thinking about, right? They're not thinking about October or November. With Bills and the Ravens, it just seems almost like NBA-ish, right? They're just waiting around for January when it really matters. Any chance of either of these teams looking past the regular season and slipping up, or are these going to be the two of the most dominant teams in the AFC?
Yeah, I think they're the two best teams in their respective
Yeah,
divisions. I think they both win. Look, they're going to both want to win this game for a game that could matter in January in terms of home
yeah.
field. But I think they're so well built. They got superstars at quarterback. I think Buffalo just doesn't beat themselves, Kevin. Like they don't turn it over. Um, Josh Allen doesn't take a lot of sacks, and
Yeah.
obviously Lamar Jackson didn't win the MVP, but could have. And these teams are absolutely both loaded. And I think about these complementary players that probably don't get the recognition, like the Khalil Shakirs of the world. And you look at Zay Flowers, who I think could be a superstar. Should be a really fun game.
Sean, I want to go over the Broncos real quick. They play the Titans, and I don't want to like if you and I start talking about the Titans, we're gonna start talking crazy. And by the way, I feel like now you've become the Titans guy more than me after you picked them to win the AFC South. I'm just trying to say Cam Ward's looks Mahomesian. You took it even further. But on the other side, you have the Broncos. It feels to me like Sean Payton took the torch from Bill Parcells as the best turnaround specialist in the sport. And he instantly changed that culture and he turned it over in 1 year. And now they're on track for a Super Bowl. When you know the Parcells way, like how just how did this happen? Like we know what Parcells does, the blunt honesty, making sure everybody does their exact role, all of that stuff. But like, how did Peyton embody it so well?
There's uncompromising every single day accountability in everything you do. Like when you show up, taking notes, giving quizzes to players, tracking their body weight, tracking their body fat percentages, it all matters. And when players know that the sword of Damocles is above them and they could be cut at any moment, it's human nature. You're going to get the most out of them. And if you run an organization, Kevin, with like absolute meritocracy, you're going
Yeah.
to get the best out of people. And that's how you get better. That becomes a force multiplier. And that's what Sean Payton does so well.
Did Parcells, what is the most family friendly now? Most Parcells ever got after you on something?
I've told this story before. There were times, Bill was a really early morning guy, so we would start the day at 5:30. There were days I was in there at 5:15 putting a note on his chair apologizing for not getting player X or Y signed or screwing something up, thinking he was going to fire me. Like, I'm sorry this happened. It'll never happen again. And literally, Kevin, 48 hours later, hey, everyone come in the cafeteria. And there was like 100 wings from Hooters that was across the street. And he's like, hey, Mike T got a deal signed. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have a chance. And, we're so lucky that Mike's here. So, like, I would go
Wow.
from being fired to being like, I'm the greatest guy. I'm the greatest front office executive of all time. And that's working for Bill, and that's like playing for Bill. I mean, you could ask Phil Simms and all those guys. Like it was just every day. Like the highs were really like he got the best out of you because the standard like was unyielding. First round pick, he did not care.
I love that. That's how the greats do it. It's the highs and the lows. There's a great line. I think it was in Bill Madden's Steinbrenner book where he would treat you like dirt for 30 years and pay for your kid's college. Like I love like you just think he's worthless to you, and it's like, oh, I love you so much. Thank you for being there. Like that's how a lot of the greats have to do it. Now it's old school and it's kind of phasing out, and there's certainly different approaches and more empathy is probably a good thing. But man, it was effective, and now Sean Payton's doing the same thing. And and by the way, you know what else? This is a great turnaround specialist because he was with Parcells, Dan Campbell, who like still talks to Parcells. Campbell told me, and I don't know if you have this, but he told me when Parcells calls him, he's still got that like look to his wife, like Parcells is calling me. I mean, this is a guy who's a head coach. He's on the verge of Super Bowl, and it's like Parcells is still a god to him.
Yeah, it's really funny. So, I'm on the show Get Up from time to time, and they have like this block, A, B, C, and D, and then 8 hour, 9 o'clock hour. And I once got a text from him at like 8:52, 8:53, and we are talking about a player, and he was saying, and for whatever reason that day, Kevin, I was a little bit more like pro player, like, hey, Greedy, if this player doesn't want to be here, they should let him go. And I get the producer in my ear saying, hey, we're going to run the 9 o'clock A's just like the 8 o'clock A's. And,
Yeah.
your answers were good. Go with it. And I look at my phone and I get a text from Parcells that says, hey, you're an embarrassment. Don't ever tell anybody you work for me. A contract is a contract. Well, I get up, like, I have a pit in my stomach, 9 o'clock A's. Greeny's like, so Mike, what do you think they should do? I'm like, Greeny, a contract's a contract. And I did like a complete 180. And
Oh my God.
I get done and I say to my wife, I'm like, my gosh, like I haven't worked for him in 20 years. It's like being married to the mob. I let him down. Like I had this pit that I let him down.
Oh my God.
And
This is amazing.
yeah, and that's Bill. I talk to him all the time. I talk to him a lot about things we're going to talk about on the air
Yeah.
because his perspective is so insightful and so like just to cut through it. And
Yeah.
I'm just so fortunate how much he's taught me. And I got to tell you, Kevin, he's probably taught me a lot more about life and people
Yeah.
and just society than football.
I completely agree. I just think he's an incredible turnaround artist, and you just see the proof in the pudding. I think I've only met him once or twice, but man, he's incredible. And I almost feel like, and not to make this a Parcells podcast, but like you almost feel like the longer time goes, the less he's appreciated. And some of that's just because of football history. It's not like baseball where we sit around talking about different players of yore, coaches of yore, GMs of yore. But like I don't want anybody to forget how good he was. All right, Texans Rams is the last one.
Fascinating game to me. Like fascinating. Like
Yes.
you've heard me go on and on all summer. Like Matt Stafford's back is an issue. Like he didn't
Yeah.
practice at all. Like, and now you have to go through 17 weeks. And that Texan defense, if it's not the best, tell me who's better. Like they got two real edge rushers and Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. They got two really good corners, and Derek Stingley's one of the best. This is a really really good defense for a national audience, and I'm just telling you, like Stafford could wind up being fine, but he hasn't had any reps yet with Devontae Adams. I think that matters.
I the back thing with Stafford. You can't, first of all, they've been so cagey about it, Mike. That's the biggest problem. They've been so cagey about it. I feel like there's been no clear answers, and then back injuries linger. They don't go away, especially for a guy like Stafford who's been hit so much. The Rams, to me, felt like they were going to win the NFC all offseason. Then we have the back issue, and then we get Green Bay making the swing of all swings. And so, man, I switched my pick. I didn't. None of these picks were binding until this week, really. So I switched my pick. I don't know if you had to do it. ESPN asked me for my predictions. I gave it to PR this morning, and so I put Ravens versus Packers because of all this with the Rams. With the Texans, to me, the question is, Mike, I'm looking at a potential top 10 offense and a potential top 5 defense. And I'm just thinking, are we over? I always think like after the Super Bowl, you say, of course, this team won the Super Bowl. Like, how often are we looking at a roster and we go, oh, of course, like you're sitting there on February 20th looking at the depth chart and going, why didn't I see this team coming? Their roster was amazing. And I'm looking at this Texans team, and I'm just wondering a little bit, Mike, if we are overlooking a potential Super Bowl team because we're so worried about this offensive line, which is not only the one weakness, but the glaring weakness.
Yeah, it could be a fatal flaw. I mean, we're going to this game talking about Matt Stafford, but we may come out talk about Ariante Ursary, the second round pick out of Minnesota, who I think is going to wind up playing left tackle. But they're going to have at least 4 new starters, and I just know from running teams, Kevin, when you have 2 or 3 new starters, that's a lot. Like Minnesota's going to have 3 new starters. Chicago's going to have 3. Like that's a lot. Like to have it 4, like, and Stroud, like last year when you watched him, like there were some inaccuracies that you didn't see the year before. And quarterbacks are human, and like ironically, Coach Parcells talked about like quarterbacks were put on this planet with only so many hits they can take. And I think last year CJ Stroud used up more than a proportionate amount of those hits. And I'm just hard pressed. And granted, I was in Miami when we drafted Laramie Tunsil, but if you're having protection problems and you have a great young quarterback in CJ Stroud, Kevin, I'm hard pressed to understand why you're better by trading Tunsil than not. Now, look, Ursary may be a good player, and you got Cam Robinson, Laken Tomlinson there. Like maybe it all sorts itself out, but you're going against a good defense led by Jared Verse. This is a game like which quarterback's standing in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Real quick, is Bill Belichick, you worked with him, you know him, talk about Parcells' disciples. Is he gonna turn it around at UNC?
Probably. Look, last night was, we're filming this on Tuesday. I was surprised how non-competitive it was. And you talk about attention to detail. I worked for Coach Belichick twice, and just like the attention to detail and gap control and two gapping,
Yeah.
like there were 2 touchdown runs where the player was untouched. Like
Yeah.
that, like I don't care if they're playing a high school team, a varsity team, an NFL team. Like I couldn't believe what we saw. That will get fixed from a talent standpoint, Kevin. You know the college game as anybody. 70 new players. That's not going to happen overnight. Now, look, they have some winnable games. Can they compete with the Clemsons of this? Of
Yeah.
the ACC this year? Doubtful. Um, I do know like it's going to be really hard to be in that building over the next couple of days. They will get better, and if your glass is half full, you would say, look, the schedule softens up. And Max Johnson, I thought looked pretty good when he went in there.
I agree. My only thing on you mentioned the talent thing, 70 new players. If you're not, it's very similar to what Coach Prime did at Colorado 2 years ago. That team went 4-8, but they also had Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders is better than anybody on UNC's quarterback depth chart. The issue is, it would be alarmingly expensive to bring in 70 new players at the rate that is required when you talk about like, Oregon's the top of the transfer portal. They spend tens of millions of dollars when they get those guys. Texas, top of the transfer portal. LSU, Miami. It costs tens of millions of dollars to do that. And I don't think UNC had that. So you're bringing in, you don't want to say B level, but the next rung, which is guys who are looking for opportunities, and there will be NIL stuff, but it's just not what it's really hard to be a competitive Power Four team with 70 new players in a year if you're not going to spend tens of millions of dollars. That's just the way I look at it. All right, Mike T, Sunday, lock in, baby.
Looking forward. Really appreciate you having me. You do great work. Big fan of you and your work, Kevin, and looking forward to seeing you on
I
Sunday.
I will say the same right at you, buddy.
All right, looking
All
forward to
right,
it.
thank you.